I am so honored that I got commissioned to make this custom State Trooper hat display case. I've never made anything like this before, and I knew it was going to be a challenge, but I thought I was up to it. What's up, y'all? My name's Andy. This is Epeius Garage. I only say that little thing because nobody seems to be able to pronounce Epeius correctly. I hear all kinds of funny ways. So that way you know how it's pronounced. In this video, I'm going to take you along for the ride of me making this custom display case. Like I said, I've never made anything like it before, and I don't have SketchUp or anything like that to make this cool fancy thing on the computer, you know, like a drawing and stuff with all the exact dimensions. So I had to draw it out by hand, kind of do some trial and error, but I think it turned out really, really great, and I'm pretty proud of it. This hat display is not just any normal hat display. It's for a very special trooper hat. The client who ordered it, Janet, and her friend Kay, both worked for the Highway Patrol and retired after 26 years of service. Thank y'all for y'all's service. During this time, they became very, very close, lifelong friends. Janet wanted to do something special for her friend Kay. Kay's dad, Daniel E. Smith, was also a state trooper, but unfortunately he was killed in the line of duty November 7th, 1959. He was struck by a drunk driver while performing his job. Crazy thing is, the drunk driver was convicted of this crime but served 0 jail time because he had kids, the judge said. I find that very odd and just not right. Trooper Smith's hat has been in a box for 63 years. Well, not anymore, because I'm going to make a display case for this special hat where it can be displayed proudly and everybody can see it to honor Trooper Smith. Where to start on this project? First thing I did is I got the dimensions from Janet on the hat. It was something like 12 by 14 and 7 inches and some odd tall. I figured by doing that, I could figure out my glass, go ahead and get my glass ordered, and then build the frame to the glass dimensions. This ended up being tougher than I thought. I think I should have just built the frame around the hat and then order the glass to my rabbit size. But anyways, that's another story. I did draw up some plans, like I said at the beginning of the video, and they were enough to help me get an estimate to Janet on how much this project was going to cost. Janet and I both decided to go ahead and make this out of pine and walnut. I know it's kind of mixing hard and soft woods, but I don't really care. You can go ahead and sue me on that. I think it turned out really cool with the light pine and the dark walnut splines. I want to make a couple honorable mentions to some folks that were helpful. First one is Champion Glass and Mirror in Fort Worth, Texas. April was awesome. She gave me some insider tips that you normally wouldn't know unless you're in the glass industry maybe. They see a lot of stuff come in and they have to repair and so forth that's been encased in wood, and I'll give more details on that. But they were very helpful and I appreciate it. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Chris from Minibot Designs. He did the laser etching for me for Trooper Smith's name and end of watch date. I appreciated that. It was really helpful to have that. I don't have room for a laser engraver. I wish I had one. Alright, after I got my material, I needed to cut the pieces. I went ahead, had my dimensions, and I cut all my pieces. I ended up using rabbets all around the edges on the inside pieces, and 45-degree miters and splines and so forth. There's a reason why I went with rabbits instead of encasing glass, and I'll get more detail on that later, but that's where Champion Glass was very helpful.
After cutting my pieces, time to glue it up. The way I do my glue ups on boxes and anything with miter joints is usually about the same way. I take a straight edge, I clamp it to my desk, I put the pieces up against it, I put tape on the back side, and then I flip it over, I apply glue in all the miter joints, nice amount, and then I close it all up and use the final piece of tape to kind of clamp it all shut. And that works really well. And of course, I always reinforce it with splines, which I'll get to in a minute, and that's going to make it a pretty strong joint.
For my miter joints are, they're not the strongest of joints, so I usually put splines in them. In this case, I cut splines using my spline jig, and I put walnut splines in there. I like the accent of the light color of the pine with the dark walnut. I think it looked really cool in all 8 corners. I swear, one of the things I hate the most is making splines.
So whenever I do have to make some, I try to make a whole bunch at once because it's really hard to get them perfectly cut the first time. I usually end up having to sand them down some. Then I make this quick little table jig. Alright, glue these bad boys together. I always put a little bit in the slot and then a little bit on the spline. Let's try this again. Clean the glue off. And if your splines are snug enough, as soon as you're done putting them in there, you can go ahead and flush cut them. They won't come out. They're like in there pretty instant. Good old splines. If I didn't put these splines in here, this would be a really, really weak frame because there's not a lot holding it together. Plus, it's going to make it look cool. That's satisfying right there. Whenever your splines are sanded, smooth, and flush. I always like that part. Maybe I'm weird. This next step, what I'm going to go ahead and do is going to be for the supports of the two frames. So I've got two frames, a bottom and a top. And I need supports on all four corners. So the way I'm going to do that is I've taken these 1.5 by, I guess they're supposed to be 1 inch, but they're actually 3/4. So this comes out to 1.5 by 1.5. And I'm going to turn this into one of the supports. And what I'll do is I'll just take my dado stack and I'll cut out a portion that's the same width as the rabbet on the frame. And then I'm going to use dowels and I'm going to dowel it to each frame. That is the plan anyways. We'll see how it works. I cut my supports to the length I needed, and then instead of using a dado stack, I just used my table saw to cut my rabbets. It's really easy, and I even did a video on this if you want to check it out. Then I found the center where I needed my dowels to go. I marked them and I drilled them. Alright, I need to make my dowel holes on the frame. I've already made them on the supports. What I'm going to use is these little points that go in to one piece. You place them in there, and then you can use that to place this where you want, and it'll mark where the other hole will go, so they match up perfectly. Now how I'm going to line that up is I'm going to use my strap clamp. Strap clamp protrudes above the frame, so I'm going to use that to guide the corner so it's perfectly flush with the outside of the frame. Then when I put these back in, it should all match up, we hope. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to number each piece, and I'm going to point an arrow up so I know which one points up, which one points down. Let's do it. Alright, so I wanted to do a dry fit. I have the dowels in the bottom frame. This isn't going to have any glass in it. And then I haven't put the dowels in the top piece yet, so I wanted to see how it all fit up. So what I did is I put the top on there, clamped them up, got them all positioned. I'm going to have a little bit of sanding and stuff, but otherwise it's going to turn out really, really well, I think. Pretty square. Might be off by like a 32nd, maybe even a 16th in some spots. But either way, I wanted to fit up the glass. This will be one of the end pieces. And the glass fits perfect. And I have enough room on both sides where I'm going to put a piece of wood trim, which I'll show you later, to hold the glass in. And I'll show you why as well later. But I think this is going to work all right. Now to do the dowels on the top.
So I'm really happy with the dry fit. I'm going to go ahead and kind of take it apart now, put glue on all of it, and then re-glue it up just the way it is right now. I'm going to let this dry overnight for sure, and I got the frame. Okay, here's the part where I ran into some trouble. Making the base. Thought this was going to be a lot easier, and it should have been. I messed up. I took 1x6s, I joined them together. That all went fine, but when I took the clamps off, I realized that each board had cupped, and so it ultimately gave my board a slight bow. I was not happy with it at all. What I ended up doing is I cut it right down the glue seam on my table saw. This is why you always make things bigger. It was bigger than the final size, so I was good. Once I did that, I made a jig for my planer. Got the boards perfectly flat, and then I took that one glue seam, re-glued them together, clamped them. After a couple hours, I was able to get back to work. Now from here with the base, what I really wanted to do is I wanted to make sure the frame sat not just on top of it and could slide around. I kind of wanted a groove around the edge that the frame, the glass frame part, is going to set in. So the way I did that is I used my dado stack. I set the frame on there, I marked out where I wanted it, where it was all even, and then I took my dado blades and I ran it through the table saw all four sides until I got the perfect cutout around each edge and the frame sat perfectly on it. Worked out really well, and I'm happy I did it that way. Now this is where April at Champion Glass really helped me out. Originally I was going to cut 1/8 inch grooves with my saw blade all around the frame and slide the glass in and put the top over and glue it. April brought up a very good point, that now the glass, if you do it that way, is encased. If it ever breaks, you're kind of screwed. You can't really easily replace the glass. You'd have to break apart the frame, you'd have to take the top off and then slide the new pieces in. If the top piece broke, you'd have to break apart the miter joint, spline. Not going to be easy. It's going to be a mess. So instead, what I did is I did rabbets. Rabbets make a lot more sense. Put them all in there like a picture frame, and you end up using wood. You can use like quarter round, or I made my own L-shape pieces that are going to fit in all the corners, and that way they'll hold in the sides and the top as well. And I'm also going to use some clear silicone around the edge of all that just for extra strength. Thanks, April. All right, got her done. Had its challenges, but I got it done. Sorry about the lighting. I was trying to get it right where it didn't have a bunch of glare on the glass so you could see it. Still not showing up the way I wanted it to, but that's all right. Anyways, really proud that I got to make this for Janet and Kay. Ultimately, it'll go to Kay. And I'm a big supporter of our first responders. Some of y'all might have noticed that I am a veteran if you've watched any of my other videos. And I really like supporting our first responders and veterans. So thank you, Janet, for the opportunity to make this. It was a lot of fun. I learned a whole lot. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. This one was a hard one to film. I'll see y'all next time.